Hi, I'm Jeffrey Pickett, bringing you a recap of the Stoughton Town Election. I'm here with my co-host, Joseph Feaster, from the Community Forum program on Stoughton Media Access. We just wrapped up our live election results show here on Tuesday, April 9th, 2019, and bringing you the results of the 2019 town election here in Stoughton. Let's bring up those results on screen, and we'll catch you up on what happened with all 8 precincts reporting. You see, it's a big night for the challengers on the Board of Selectmen race and on the Redevelopment Authority race. Challenger Joe McCrisky, a former member of the Board of Selectmen, will now be a current member of the Board of Selectmen. Joe McCrisky defeating incumbent Rick Hill 1,049 to 931. On the Redevelopment Authority race, Mark Zemanian was challenging incumbent Michael Barrett, and Mark Zemanian came away with a victory 941 to 874. It was a different story, however, on the school committee side. Both of the incumbents in that race, Anita Hill and Joe McDonough, defeated challenger Erda Murrell. There were 2 seats up for the school committee this election cycle, and they'll remain with the incumbents. Anita Hill received 1,162 votes, Joe McDonough 1,086, and Erda Murrell 789. So those were the contested races on the ballot, and I want to bring Joseph in here for your reaction to the results that we saw tonight.
Well, Jeff, again, it's always a pleasure to do this election program with you. And it's always good to bring it to the viewers so that they can get a sense, because a lot of people just don't see it in the full picture, or they read it the day after. To get it instantaneously right after the election over, I think portends very well for your leadership in starting this several years ago. This election was interesting in it, and some of our conversation beforehand certainly rang true once the results were in. One of the things that we said was that there were certain precincts which would be determinative, particularly in the Selectmen's race and in the Redevelopment Authority race. And we said we felt that Hill needed to have a strong showing in Precinct 4 and also Precinct 2. And this is in the Selectmen race. I'm talking about not in the school committee race. That didn't really, in Precinct 4, had a fairly sizable, had about 29 votes ahead of McCrisky, because that was one of the early precincts. Well, that wasn't an early precinct, came up because Precinct 3 and 5 came up first. But McCrisky trounced him in McCrisky's home precinct, Precinct 5, and which made a difference, and Hill could not recover from that. And then the Precinct 2, which we felt, because as it turned out, what we predicted that 7 and 8 would go for McCrisky turned out to be so. Hill was not able to garner enough votes in Precinct 2 to overtake McCrisky, and that took again, that's the reason for the outcome in that particular race, and that's something we predicted. And
those were Precincts 2 and 4, which were very strong last year for Bob O'Regan and Stephen Cavey, who won last year's Selectmen's race.
That's correct.
And just not the case this year. And McCrisky was able to be competitive in the 2 precincts that he lost. He only lost Precinct.
He only lost Precinct 3 and 4.
He lost Precinct 3 by 10 votes, and he lost Precinct 4 by 29 votes, yes, and which he was more than able to make up with his large victory in Precinct 5.
Resounding victory at Precinct 5.
Going to the redevelopment race, Mark Zemanian winning Precincts 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8, and a healthy margin in Precinct 1, his home precinct, able to erase the small deficits that he had with Michael Barrett taking Precincts 3, 4, and 5.
Well, I went back and looked at the numbers for the 2017 race, and just again, Hill was in that race, but it was running against, there were five five candidates in that selectman race in 2017. Hill garnered in that particular race 1,195 votes and was the third vote getter in that particular race. The top vote getter at that time was Sullivan. So my sense is, having gotten N in precinct 4, received 244 votes, and in precinct 2, 185 votes. So the question is, and in this race, 192 in precinct 4, and 121 in precinct 2. So what happened in that 2 years?
Right.
Is something I'm sure that Rick will be trying to analyze and to see, but numbers tell you something. Now, we can say maybe it was the weather, we can say it was the apathy, I'm not sure, but that certainly wasn't the case as a result for the challenges in both that and in the redevelopment authority. So,
Joe, we were fortunate enough to be able to sit down with the winners in the major townwide races this earlier this evening. First, we saw town moderator Adam Dawkins, followed by redevelopment authority member Mark Zemanian, followed by school committee members Joe McDonough and Anita Hill, and lastly, we ended the evening with an interview with Joe McCrisky, who won the selectmen's race. So let's re-air those interviews so you can see them in full that we did on election night. So we're sitting here with town moderator Adam Dawkins. You will be now starting, this will be your third town meeting season that you'll be presiding over.
That's right.
So as you start to prepare for town meeting, you don't really have a race to focus on. So tell us about the preparations for town meeting and what your work's been like the last few months and what it will be like heading up to May 6th, the start of town meeting.
Sure. We are just concluding hearing season. Many of our town meeting representatives serve on the Finance Committee or on several of the standing committees, be that municipal operations or municipal regs or intergovernmental relations, and those meetings have now largely concluded for the season, and that's where I've been focusing, is making sure those hearings have gone underway, and that all of the articles, all 57 articles that we'll be hearing at town meeting this coming May, have been heard in committee before they get to the floor of town meeting, as assigned by the Rules Committee. So really, the ramp up is for my part of what happens going up to town meeting started back in February, right around the time the warrant was delivered to me by the Board of Selectmen, and then we started our hearings with the standing committees getting ready for town meeting. So I'll just say, I mean, there's no such thing as really a quiet town meeting. But I would just say my own sort of observation of what looks like to me the way this town meeting is shaping up is that, sort of like this election, town meeting is not as quite as exciting maybe as it has been the last few years. I mean, the business before us is all very, very important, but there's nothing on there that I would say is going to be that sort of glares at me as a massive kind of show-stopping deal, I guess, for this year, which is probably a nice change of pace for folks in town.
well, I just want to say, having been a town meeting representative for the past 6 years, I wanted to say I want to commend you for the job that you've been doing for, well, 2 of the town meetings in which I've had a pleasure of being there with you. What do you portend for the going forward? I know there's some bylaw questions that are before you. I know you also have responsibility for looking at the charter to select a charter committee. We've talked about and we've had conversations about the form of government that we have here. Any of those issues on the table as you see going forward, Mr. Moderator?
Well, the Charter Review Committee convened for the first time probably in about 3 years, I think, that they've convened the early part of this year and have been underway under the chairmanship of Stanley Zoll. And they have really kind of been looking at a number of smaller changes to the town charter that have to do with the term of the moderator, that have to do with compensation of town elected officials and what have you, and just to make sure that the charter is consistent for all of those sorts of things. The Charter Review Committee really cannot deal with sweeping changes. That would require a charter commission, which would have to be called together by town meeting. But I think from what I can sort of feel among the spirit of this Charter Review Committee is that they are interested, I think, in thinking about some larger changes to the town charter. Right now, they're able to do what's under their purview. But I think, from what I can tell, I think many of the folks on the Charter Review Committee would be interested in seeing something more significant happen and conversations happen around around our town charter, which has been in effect for close to 50 years now, I think, hasn't it, or 45 years or so.
Right,
this
without
town
any
charter
changes.
without any material changes anyway. That's right. So I think that my opinion is the charter should always be a living, breathing document. And should always be looked at to make sure that it's serving the needs of the town today. So
Adam, something I'd like to ask is that use this opportunity. There were many write-ins for town meeting tonight, but it's not going to fill or unlikely to fill all the vacancies for town meeting reps.
Right.
168 overall, 21 per 8 precincts. If you didn't get enough write-ins tonight, or there's still vacancies in your precinct, how do you go about getting on to town meeting in time for this May?
Well, first of all, I do want to say that I'm really, really encouraged and very grateful to so many who who came and pulled out papers this year to run for town meeting representative, and congratulations to all who won, and particularly those who will be joining us for the first time this year, and also those who have written in and were elected this evening. Congratulations to you, and I look forward to working with you at town meeting. There will be some precincts, and I'm not sure which ones those are just yet. I'll know that after I have a conversation with the clerk later this week, who will have the opportunity to caucus, and there will be a number of seats available in some precincts for which people might caucus in, and a caucus term is 1 year. So if you caucus in, that's a 1 year term. Right now we have April 22nd on hold for the date of our caucuses for this season. So be on the lookout for posts on social media, and also ads in the Penny Saver and other announcements for the number of openings, and also the precincts that will have an opportunity to caucus. If you're still interested in being in town meeting, I hope you'll reach out to me. I'd be glad to tell you anything I can tell you about town meeting, and also to encourage your involvement in our form of government. I hope to see a full house this year at town meeting.
Well, Adam, thank you very much. Appreciate the time, and we'll see you.
Congratulations.
Thank you
and
very, very
look
much. I appreciate it.
forward for another good town meeting, I'm sure,
Yes.
under your leadership.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. So our next, let's bring up Mark Semanian, if he can. Mark Semanian, if we could bring back the results, and we can look at Mark's race in particular. We want to thank our town moderator again, Adam Dawkins, for joining us as we have Mark Semanian. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you can see, let's see those results and pull them up on my end as well. You have Mark Semanian with 941 votes to Michael Barrett's 874. And it just so happened that in the order of the precincts, the way we got them tonight, Mark took the last 5 precincts after Michael Barrett took the first 3. So strong finish for you this evening, and particularly your home precinct, Precinct 1, as well as several others. But let's start off strategy-wise.
If I could,
Yeah.
I just want to thank Michael Barrett for a hard-fought race and a good race, a clean race. This is the kind of politics I like to see. Nobody bashed each other too hard. I think we stuck to the issues. And I think, obviously, it worked out in my favor tonight, but it surely could have gone either way. So I was nervous from time to time.
Well, what's your, I'd like to ask you from, you're going to be on the Redevelopment Authority, you're going to be the new guy. What's going to be your kind of your day one initiative? What are you bringing to that first meeting that you're going to have on the Redevelopment Authority?
I got to get my feet wet.
Sure.
But once I do, I'm going to be working very closely with the rest of the members of redevelopment and with the Board of Selectmen, with the Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals. I would love to see everybody in town on the same page. I think right now unity is really important in this town. As I said, this was a hard-fought race and a well-fought race. So now that it's over, I'm hoping we can all get on the same page and move forward. If I can, I'd like to give a shout-out to all my voters. I think they were wonderful in supporting me, especially Precinct 1, but all the precincts. I want to thank my wife, Pam, and my 2 children who have suffered immensely through this campaign. They're going to get Dad and their hubby back soon, so after tonight. And I want to thank my campaign staff, all those volunteers. They were amazing people who worked thanklessly through this whole thing. And I just want to give a shout out to all those folks who helped me out. So thank you all who voted for me. Thank my family, and I thank my supporters.
Mark, this is typical of your gentlemanship. I've observed you over the years in
thank you, Joe.
town meeting. I've observed your thinking process. When you are dogged on issues which you feel strongly about.
Yes.
Sitting on the redevelopment authority, and I'm familiar with it from having my involvements with the redevelopment authority, but also from what my involvements with redevelopment authority in Boston.
Sure.
What do you see as some initiatives that you would like to see the town, and you said it's going to take that collectivity in order to accomplish it? Are there any things that are on your mind right at the present time?
Well, I obviously I am thinking about cooperation between all boards first and foremost. On a secondary basis, I meant what I said. The brunt of getting this downtown revitalized has to be initiated by us, but has to be funded by private development.
So would you be in agreement with me? We need a private-public partnership.
You've heard me say it all campaign,
Well,
yes.
in terms of fine, I'm going to say it here, and I guess the frustration for me is we don't have, the government doesn't always have to lead. Government has to play a role. But I think the private sector can take some lead here, and we need somebody who's going to provide that type of initiative. Is that something that you
Absolutely.
see is necessary?
Absolutely, I do. Government is not in the real estate business. Let's be realistic. The few times we've seen government stumble into that, it's often turned out poorly. So we really need to work with our private developers. And I think we start at the core of Stoughton and work our way out. We have some great developers here. Maybe they'll want to be involved, maybe they won't, but I certainly want to give them the opportunity to be involved in this. I know there's been some wonderful ideas coming from some local people here in town. Doesn't mean they'll happen, but I think we have to hear everybody out.
Well, Mark, I want to give you just a chance of another final thought before we interview the school committee and the selectmen candidates tonight.
We have a lot of work to do. I look forward to doing it with the Redevelopment Authority, the Planning Board, the Board of Selectmen, and any other board. CPC is another board that is vital to this process, and I am intimately involved with them, so I don't want to ignore them. They're a very important part of it, and everybody that I've had experience with, i.e. the CPC, they've all been gentlemen and ladies about it. I really feel strongly that we can work together, and we can bring good development to town, development that Stoughton wants.
Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Mark. Charles, I think you'll be doing a good job on the redevelopment authority.
I'm certainly going to try for the people.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for
and
having me.
we neglected to say when we talked about that this race, didn't have really fresh faces. Mark is a fresh face. You do know him if you've gone to the meetings, gone to town meeting. But in terms of running for town-wide race, this was Mark's first foray into it, and
right.
he was successful.
And he stepped up to the plate,
Right.
and he hit a home run. So.
He did, and it's also important to know the selectmen school committee are 3-year terms, moderators a 1-year term, the redevelopment authority is a 5-year term. So Mark Zemanian won a 5-year seat on the redevelopment authority. So we're going to go on to our school committee race here, where both of the incumbents, Anita Hill and Joe McDonough, came out victorious tonight. And then we'll end the evening with an interview with the winning selectman candidate, Joe McCrisky. So I'm joined now, Joseph and I are joined by Anita Hill and Joe McDonough. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Anita, thank you.
Well, you know I like that first name.
Yeah,
It has a nice little, it has a nice ring to it.
Before we get into, how do you feel about winning and everything, I just want to talk about, Joe, not to put you on the spot, but I want to give you an opportunity to address the rumors that have been circulating about that if you won this evening, you would resign and allow the 4 remaining school committee members and the 5 selectmen that you would get together and appoint somebody to fill out your term. I know, I just want to give you
Give everyone's resignation right now or next week?
no, but I just want you to be able to address that.
That's nothing to address.
Okay.
I think the results sum it up of whether people want his pot stirring on the board, and they decided they didn't, and people realized, hey, it's not true. So I don't have anything else to say.
Okay. So
Well, I want to talk about the campaigning. I mean, it's a sense of, if I was analogized to to a sport, and I'll go to boxing in terms of back in the day, the rope-a-dope would be akin to what I would say here. I know you made her, as far as your campaign, in order to do it in a very quiet way.
Yep.
Was that a strategy that you used, or it's just a matter of?
It was
what
a matter
your
of,
thinking?
he's been on the board, I've been on the board, and he's been on the board. We went through this 3 years ago. People picked me. They've seen what I've done the past 3 years, and they obviously, there was no reason to campaign. I'm not a politician. People know what I've done. They can decide on their record and what they've seen from all 3 of us, and they obviously decided what they like best. It's not like it's anybody new. It's the same people that have been around. We all have records to stand behind, and it is what it is.
Hey, listen, well, it worked for you, obviously, so congratulations to you on that. Just Anita, I
No,
mean.
one other thing.
Yes.
I didn't purposely skip anything like
Yes.
whatever. I have family, I have kids, and they're the most important thing and the reason I run. So I'm not going to shove them aside. I'm not going to make accommodations. We both work ridiculous schedules, so it wasn't because I said, hey, I'm not going to do this just for the heck of not doing it. It just, timing didn't work out. So,
Family
family
first.
first.
There you
Always
go,
is.
my friend, family first. Anita, congratulations to you as well. You've been reelected. You topped the ticket. You won.
yeah, let's put up those results again so we
Yeah.
can see.
You won 6 precincts of the 8. You garnered 1,162 votes. Talk to us about your thinking on there, and I don't know if there's going to be changes. Maybe will we see a new chair at the school committee?
Don't count your chickens. As you know, every election we reorganize, so that will be the process that we follow. If anyone knows me personally, they know I am the queen of non-confrontation, and that I will happily sit by and help anyone I can help. My schedule is kind of similar to Joe's. That work thing gets in the way all the time, Monday through Friday. I work Monday through Friday till 5 p.m. every day, so that excludes me from a lot of daytime activities. Personally, if I commit to something, goes back to my PTO days, that if I commit to something, I go in 110%. And part of being chair, you're required, I think it's 30 hours a month, 20 hours a month, something like that, to be available for either functions in the school or meetings at the school or that. And I take that seriously. So I have been approached wanting to know, because we try to share it. It's not like anybody wants to be chair for 5 years in a row or whatever. We don't do that on purpose. But if you don't want it, because I feel I can't commit to it, I can't give enough that in my heart I would need to do. But I'm happy to serve on the committee. I enjoy the committee. I think I do a pretty good job. I got a really good head for budgets because that's what I do in my day job. So I'm happy to continue.
I want to be able to ask both of you, because this is the most high-profile decision a board of your nature can make, and that's the hiring of a new superintendent. And it was a unanimous decision to go with Dr. Marcus from the Sharon Public Schools, but first via the Hanson Elementary School, former Hanson School principal, and then Dr. Marcus went on to work in Sharon. He's currently assistant superintendent there. Talk to me about what went into that decision to go with Dr. Marcus when there was an in-house candidate, the current Stoughton High principal, Julie Miller, who was gaining a lot of steam, in terms of people just kind of assuming, oh, she's from Stoughton, that will be the choice. What made you go with Dr. Marcus, and what are you looking forward to working with him over your next 3 years as your term will align with his first contract?
Personally, what I had to do for the decision, we had 4 great candidates, and we did site visits, we did the one-on-ones that SMAC had, and they all were amazing candidates. It came down to a choice, and in my mind, what I had to put first on the list, what was best for the students of the district. Yes, candidates, whether they be a principal or an assistant superintendent or a superintendent, a past superintendent, they all obviously would know and or learn how to do that job. But in my mind, at this particular point, we have an opportunity, like you said, to get the best for the students from the get-go, as opposed to someone who might have to be on a slight learning curve, or who might have to get used to Massachusetts rules and statutes, or who might have to. I wanted to get the best from the get-go. And it was a hard decision for me. It was one of the hardest decisions I had to make because it was between heart and head. And I followed my head, and I hope that I think we will find out that we made the right decision. From what I've seen even so far, I've ran into Dr. Marcus around various activities and various events.
I love that he's going to all of the spring fairs. I keep seeing pictures on the schools.
We played volleyball together Friday night. I just think it's going to be a whole new chapter, and that's what I look forward to.
Joe?
It's pretty much what she said. 2 of the main things for me is they're all great candidates, but Dr. Marcus does have experience as an assistant superintendent. And he's been in with I know the other ones could have a hand in the budget and have had a hand in the budget, but he's been closer to budget, closer to town meeting, closer. He has a little experience as a deputy superintendent, which I think will help with that learning curve a little more than the other candidates. The other thing that made a huge difference for me is when we went to the site visit. There was a common theme throughout every single person that we met. It was pretty much the same thing. Very upset not that anybody was happy to lose who they were losing, but it was just, there wasn't a single person that really wasn't upset that he was leaving the school, and that speaks volumes. So.
Well, thank you both. I mean,
Any
again,
final thoughts before?
Yeah, well,
you
in
just-
terms of fine, why don't you, either one of you, and both of you?
Kind of like I said, I thank everybody that helped work on the campaign that I did do. I, too, did a very low-key, and that was by choice. Campaigns can be expensive. And I just chose to go a slightly different route and run on my record, and that's what I counted on.
Joe?
I would just like to say thank you to everybody that came out to vote. Once again, I'm not gonna run around plastering signs, plastering Facebooks with everything. I think well, I say
I don't
we
do
because she already
Facebook.
said it. She already said I don't do Facebook either. I have an account. I'm never on
I
the
watch.
thing. Like she said, I'm running on my record. People, they see what they like, and I'm glad and appreciative that people came out to vote. And I'd gladly come out and thank them for voting for me. And also, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to email us. It's the only way you're going to get the answer you're looking for.
Well, congratulations to you both. You have an ambitious agenda ahead of you with a new superintendent, a new high school, talking about trying to fund some work, I think it's at the South School. So you have a number of different things. And now also, is there a new principal at the West School or some discussion or?
Gibbons.
Gibbons,
Going through
okay.
the hiring for
Gibbons
the
hiring.
principal,
So you got a lot on your plate. Congratulations. Good
But
luck
we
to
don't
you
do
all.
we don't do the
No,
principals, but
we have nothing to do with the principals.
That's all
principals
right.
or teachers.
You leave that to the
We don't do
superintendent.
any personnel decisions.
That's all right.
So,
Well,
except for-
congratulations to you
No,
both.
appreciate it. Thank
Okay.
you, thank you. All right, so those are both of the school committee members. Joe McDonough and Anita Hill both winning this evening by a healthy margin over their challenger, Dr. Erda Mural, and we thank both Anita and Joe for joining us. And let's wrap up our show with the Selectmen's winner, and that's Joe McCrisky, no stranger to the seats that are to my left. And he'll be sitting there again the next Tuesday that the selectmen convene for a meeting. So, Joe, let's bring up the results as we transition to have Joe up, just so we could see.
Thank you.
And so, as you can see here, we have Joe McCrisky with 1,049, Rick Hill with 1,031. So a 1,018 vote differential, and Joe McCrisky took precincts 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
He took 6 out of the 8, and again, just as I said to McDonough, that first name just has a ring to it. Is one that I like. So, congratulations, Joe
Thank you.
McCrisky. You're back
Thank you.
again. When I first came to town nearly 21 years ago, I believe you were the chair. I think you may have been the chairman of the board when I came in '98.
I'll tell you, it's tough to keep track. You're on the board, you're off the board, you're off the board, you're on the board.
Well, I know you were around when I first came to town.
And that's when we met. And
Yes.
I remember we always had a cordial relationship, may not have agreed on everything.
Nope.
But that's this is what it's about. You know,
That's right.
it is one town, and we're not always going to agree. But
We can agree to disagree without being
exactly,
disagreeable.
and we should be able to smile, walk away,
That's
and
right.
then throw the knives.
That's right. Well,
No,
congratulations
thank
to you.
Thank you so much.
What do you see in terms of, I mean, you raised a number of issues, and if we were to talk about the campaigning, you were the most visible, both in terms of signage, in terms of what you had in terms of the paper, you were outspoken and eloquent at all of the debates, and you raised some issues as to things that you saw that needed to be changed. If I were to say to you, what are some of the top areas that you would like to see now sitting on the Board of Selectmen that you would like to see the board address?
Well, again, you know, and when in the campaign, you know, it's tough, and social media takes a life of itself on. And, you know, this was a different race. I mean, basically, it was campaigning against more than just one person, is the philosophy of the board. And, you know, in this race, I had, you know, sitting members of the board lobbying, you know, for votes as well. So it's very difficult. But my years of experience have shown me, and looking at some of the data that comes out of the state financial, you know, our uncollected real estate revenues have in 1 year jumped, you know, almost 100%. And I don't know what we're doing. Now, let's face it, we can't, if we never learn from the past, or look rather at the past, we're not going to learn from it. And we've had a tumultuous few years that really municipal government was in disarray. You know, for whatever reason, you know, not to point fingers, but it happened. And I think we may have missed the opportunity to be on top of some things funding-wise. I have always been a proponent on excise tax. You know, being in the field that I am in commercial vehicles, there's a lot of commercial vehicles in town that are not paying their real estate, their excise tax to the town of Stoughton. That's something through the assessor's office, by going to these properties, because with the price of commercial vehicles, you know, you could be paying, you know, thousands of dollars, not just a couple thousand, you know, $10,000 for some of these big trucks. And we need to be on top of that. Look around our neighborhoods. You know, we're utilizing, people are moving into homes, and, you know, and they've had, you know, 5 and 6 cars to a house that was only have a car driveway for 2. They're parking in streets, they're parking on sidewalks. That brings down our property values. We need to address that. We need to, you know, to look at that, because that does hurt our property values.
How about the campers and the boats?
Well, exactly. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we have, you know, so many things that we need to look at, and it's petty to some people, but it does affect our community.
Yes.
I want to see us, and the most important thing I want to see is, I'm not, you know, going to try to work, and this was somebody that in the same thing, we disagree, but we, you know, we can talk about it. And this person, who I do respect, and said to me, I'm afraid, Joe, if you get elected, you're going to try to undo all the good things this board's doing. And that's nothing further from the truth. But I want to work to bring a different voice. And if you both were here last year, it was a close race last year, and there are a group of people that feel they're not being represented by this board. And I think that's the vote that I was able to gather. And it's not that I want to tear things apart, you know, but I know what I know as well. I've got a lot of years, you know, sitting up here in this seat. And I want to see us be able to, you know, fund things based on perfect data. What's the return on investment to the taxpayers? We've got things out there right now that, this board went to town meeting, lost the support, hasn't, they've had the CPC committee where they're going for funding, say that they're not prioritizing, that they're not doing their homework. I mean, these things are not how you move a town forward. We move the town forward by agreeing to disagree, getting all the data, and make sure it's realistic, and then go for our funding, and then show the taxpayers, if we build this sewer system, we'll make money back that's going to benefit the taxpayers, and it's not going to be put on the back of the taxpayers. And a lot of people right now feel that it's just too much, too quick following the tax increase on the school vote. Now, I'm in favor of a lot of what the board wants to do, just a different way. And that argument is not being brought to the table at this time, and that's what I'm hoping to bring back.
I want to talk about an issue that came up multiple times during the campaign, and that was the settlement with the former town manager, Michael Hartman. Do you feel that kind of maybe drove some voters towards you and maybe helped push you over? There's been several kind of hot-button issues, whether it was Paul Chastain's exit as police chief that helped put Peter Brown in a few years back. Do you feel that this issue was something that was a message that a lot of voters weren't happy with the fact that the town settled with the former town manager?
Well, again, I don't know, and this was asked of me once before, and I didn't have what the board had in front of them. All the information didn't come forward for all of the residents. But I do understand, that you, as Joe knows, in court, I mean, you can take a chance, and it can go wrong. But I disagreed because we had already been supported twice in court. And, I think it's a stretch, myself, that we would have lost it because there were two solid decisions. And the appeal didn't go well, where it was taken forever to have that appeal take place. It was something that was so easy of a decision. The appeal, from what I'm told, from lawyers that know, is that it would have happened faster. So the longer it took, I don't know. I mean, it is, and I think there's not just one issue that brought people to vote for me, is that I think people want somebody that's going to stand up and bring things up no matter how unpopular it is. And John Morton, I respect the heck out of John Morton. We can do, Joe, like you just mentioned, we can disagree, but we can also sit down and try to work it out so that we can get to the middle of the road. As they say, meet at the fence and agree. You may not like your neighbors that much, but you got to live beside each other. And I don't feel that we're getting that with this board. There's a lot of 5-0 votes, more than I've ever seen in my years on the Board of Selectmen. But again, my job is to come up here to work with my peers, which I will. I mean, I have no ill feelings to anybody that sits on this board. I'll thank Rick for his years of service, both on the Finance Committee, on the Board of Selectmen. I don't think Rick is going anywhere, but it's just a difference of opinion. And that's healthy. I made a comment about collision of ideas, and that's what we need to be able to do, is to come out and everybody talk about the good of the town, expose where our problems are, and as a team, bring something to a mutual agreement so that we can move the town forward. But if everybody agrees all the time, we're not getting that, that kind of cross-pollination.
I want to ask you two things, Joe, because again, the 20 years that I've been here in town, you have, I want to know what motivates you because being an elected official is not an easy task. Is not one where you would oftentimes revered in the process. And the second question I would have for you is, how can we motivate the townspeople to participate in our processes? We were talking about this. We've been fluctuating around in most elections, and I think it's going to be a lesser number in this one, around that 13%.
Right.
What can you do? And you talk about the split in the town and all of those things. What can a Joe McCrisky do, a person who is visible, is known, is motivated? What do you think that you can do towards trying to make that happen?
Well, I think it's just talking about, Joe, what we've just talked about, is being able to disagree and come to the table and say, listen, it's not all about you, it's not all about you, it's about all of us. And I've been here long enough, and I've, again, worked with many members of the board, and you've got a political history, you understand some of them, and there were people that I didn't get along with when I first got elected in 1992. And that gentleman now, we probably didn't talk for the first 3 months of my first year on the board, and we became very good friends on the board. We realized that we vote a lot alike. And I think if people see that, and they see more of that open discussion and collision of ideas on the board, they're going to know that we're all working together. We're putting our egos aside and our political views and looking at the issue as, my good friend David Gergen says when he worked for Republican presidents and Democratic presidents, he said, listen, my job was to look at the issue. It's not my job to take sides. The president is going to do what he has to do. We're the Board of Selectmen. We are considered the highest executive authority in the town, and we set the tone for whether people want to be involved with or not. And there's a lot of people that have felt that some of these decisions have just been made too fast, too quick. And again, look at the committees that have, sent their message very clear. Look at the words of the CPC committee in a meeting just last month. They were frustrated. The lack of prioritization, the lack of planning, the lack of information that comes forward. That's not what the Board of Selectmen should be doing with committees that they need to work with. Right. Because that alienates the committee and the people they know as well.
Last issue-oriented question I want to ask is the fire station.
Yeah.
It's something that oftentimes gets overlooked as, other municipal buildings take the forefront. What can you do now that you're back on the board to help accelerate the process of doing something about the Freeman Street Fire Station? Joe, I know that when you were interim town manager, I'm talking to Joe Feaster here, that it was a big issue for you,
Yes.
and it just didn't, it just has never seemed to really gain the steam that it needs to get fixed. And, the conditions that the firemen down on Freeman Street are dealing with, as you both know, are deplorable.
Right. Well, again, that's going to be my priority. Because when the first question was asked me in the first debate, what would be your two biggest issues? Downtown revitalization and the fire station.
Hey.
And I've become very good friends over the years with Carol Melendi. And when I've talked with Carol, I've said that, it's my personal opinion that the town as a whole, through the lack of action, is disrespected the career of Victor Melendi. There's been reports that came out back to '94, that said all the problems we had. And, somebody had, in this election said, well, you were on the board when these things happened. Well, I'll tell you right now, if I was on the board by myself, we would have fixed it. But it's 5 people that think differently. And a lot of times you just can't get people to come together to say what is, again, the priority. I believe this board needs to prioritize for the next 5 years as to what we're going to do, instead of just throwing something against the wall and see what sticks financially. We have a lot of the fire station. I mean, it trumps everything we've talked about. But
We've been fortunate as a town that we haven't been sued.
Exactly. And like I said, it's time, to put the BS aside. It's time to dig in and prioritize what we need. And the fire station is priority one.
Well,
Now,
hey,
if we can show what the board is coming up with a study, if we can show that it's more cost, at the economic end of it, to build a public safety building, I'm all for it. But, they put the number out of $30 million without a piece of land to put it on. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen. And you know what? I don't want to wait another 5 years while we discuss this. We need a fire station now. We have a police station that has plenty of land that could be built onto very easily at a cost savings. So that's not an issue. The issue is the fire department. And there's a lot we can do in the original footprint. The fire chief and I have spoken, and he's, agreeable to the conversation and the theories. And we've got to hit the ground running, and that's going to be my priority, those two things.
Well, I applaud you for that. That certainly is one, and I've said that to our firemen for the longest period of time. I've been going from the position for 7 years now, and 7 years has been nothing really done there except some minor repairs. So hopefully, Joe McCrisky, you can take that on and make something happen over the ensuing years to give
Well,
our
Joe,
firemen
you know how it is as well, is, there is at times, and this is one with the fire station, it's almost embarrassing to look a firefighter in the face and say, I'm with you. Because you know what they're thinking, yeah, we've heard that before.
That's right.
And it's time for us to stop the crap and move forward.
Congratulations.
congratulations
Mr.
so much.
Selectman.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all you guys do. And if I can just thank everybody that worked on my behalf, and most importantly, the voters who put their trust in me. I'd say like this, like Tom Brady, I've got 6 now. So thank you all, and thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you, Joe.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
All right, so that was Joe McCrisky, who is the newest selectman on the board. So we're back here now after you heard from the winning candidates from election night. And before we sign off, Joe, any final thoughts?
Well, again, I want to congratulate all of the persons who ran for office. It takes a lot of guts in order to run for political office. You expose yourself to in so many different ways. So I congratulate all of those persons who have done that, Jeff. I want to particularly congratulate the winners. The winners get the spoils, and I want to congratulate Selectman McCrisky, school committee members Hill and McDonough, and Redevelopment Authority member Zemanian. Again, this has been an interesting night. As we said, hopefully in the future we'll have persons who will participate more. The turnout, in my view, was
It was low. It was 10.4%.
Was a sad commentary for the town, and I'm hopeful that people will take that, at least our admonitions here, and say, I want to get more engaged in the town and have my voice be heard.
So before we sign off, let's go over the results one more time. So in the selectmen's race, Joe McCrisky coming away with a victory over incumbent Rick Hill. That was 1,049 to 931. In the redevelopment authority race, Mark Zemanian defeats incumbent Michael Barrett, and that was a close race throughout the night, but it ended up going to Zemanian, who carried 5 out of the 8 precincts. That total was 941 to 874. And finally, on the school committee side, Anita Hill with 1162, Joe McDonough, 1086, the incumbents winning in that race, with Dr. Erda Murrell, a former member of the school committee, coming in third with 789. So voter turnout was low, as we mentioned. It was 10.4%. That's 2,030 ballots cast out of a possible 19,456. So I want to thank everybody for watching our election coverage, and I want to thank my co-host, Joseph Feaster, and I want to thank our crew from election night, Aaron Lockhart, who helped get the results down at the town clerk's office. Want to thank C.J. Mullen and Jackie Hausman, who ran the control room in the back of the Great Hall, and of course the town clerk's office for tabulating the results all night, and the volunteers who work at the polls for the 13 hours that the polls are open on election day. So once again, thank you for tuning in and watching our election coverage. I'm Jeffrey Pickett.
Joseph Feaster, and have a good night.
Thank you for tuning in.